Hello, welcome to this episode of the Financial Incline. I'm your host, John Bovard. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Lindsey Willoughby. Lindsey is the owner of East Orchard Dentistry, which is a dental practice located in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. Prior to purchasing East Orchard Dentistry in September of 2020, Lindsey worked primarily in public health in both Northern Kentucky and on the south side of Chicago. During our conversation, we discuss what made her decide to purchase her dental practice, who she had as her team of advisors to help her through this process, also any bumps in the road or anything she would have done differently while she was acquiring the business. Lastly, we talk about what challenges she currently faces as a business owner, future plans for her practice, and also any advice that she would share with other dentists that are in a similar position or those that are considering owning a private dental practice. I appreciate you listening to this conversation. Make sure you subscribe. And without further ado, here's my guest, Dr. Lindsey Willoughby. Hey, Lindsey, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy to hear that the renovations have been complete at your office.
They are they ever complete? Because I think the contractor's there right now, like sanding drywall and stuff that they didn't finish. But yes, mostly complete.
Getting there.
Big stuff is done. We're operational. Yes.
Perfect. Well, great. So, Lindsey, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us today, for anyone that's watching or tuning into this, just a little bit of background about yourself, and then from there, kind of a brief description of your practice.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Lindsey Willoughby. I'm a general dentist in Northern Kentucky in Fort Mitchell. I don't know what the practice or the podcast audience is, if they know the area or not, but I'm just south of Cincinnati. Grew up here, about a mile from where my practice is, which is never thought that would happen, but it did. I'm married, have two kids, two little boys. They're 3 and 5. They were 1 and 3 when I bought the business, so that was busy. Went to school in Northern Kentucky, ended up at Georgetown College for undergrad and dental school at University of Kentucky. My husband's also from the area, so we met in undergrad, and thankfully all of our family are here because that's been enormous in this whole endeavor. We moved to Chicago for a little bit and came home. He's in corporate. He's worked in the grocery industry since we graduated college, which was in 2009. I graduated dental school in 2013, so I've been out about 10 years. So we're rolling. We're in the throes of career mode right now.
Yes, you're building. You're right in the thick of things.
Yes,
that's great. That's great. So obviously married with 2 young kids, in purchasing the practice, what led you? Have you always wanted to own your own business, or what
absolutely not.
decision?
I did not ever want to own my own business. At least that was what I thought. I was had kind of checked out of that whole idea. Dentistry is a lot of healthcare, and you probably have seen it without knowing that you saw it, but like pharmacy has gone this direction where like you used to have these little mom and pop, like privately owned small business pharmacies, and now those are almost gone. They're kind of all Walgreens, CVS, Kroger. Right. Ophthalmologists have gone that way. Like you used to be able to go see your ophthalmologist or optometrist and they kind of their own little practice. Not really anymore. That's all, right. Around here, there's like Wing Eye Care and some other things. Yeah. So dentistry, when I was in school, was already starting to head that direction. Right now it's probably 50-50, but I just kind of had chalked up to like, that's kind of not really going to be an option. I don't have a lot of business sense, so that I don't know. I never even really thought it would be a thing, but here we are. So
right, that's right. Yeah, that's it seems like I've come across many different types of people. Either they're very entrepreneurial or the opportunity presented itself and they thought it would work out and then they got into it and pulled it off. So what made you then decide to go through with the purchase of East Orchard Dentistry?
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had been an employee dentist for 7 years, mostly in actually nonprofit and public health. Um, and then went on to work for one of those corporations, which they own, a good chunk of dental practices now, because I think dentistry is probably about 50-50 private ownership. We're fighting to keep it that way now that I'm out and in it. I see that there's definitely a divide
Yeah.
between those big groups in this, but just as an employee, I had done that for a while, and there were frustrations, but generally I wasn't that unhappy with most of the setups. But with COVID, that changed a lot. They ran out of funding for the program that I was working. It was a school-based program, and and schools were closed, and so
Right.
I got laid off. And the intention was to come back on once schools opened back up, but everything was just really unknown, and that feeling of just not knowing. Plus, there was it wasn't mismanagement of grant funding or anything like that in like an illegal way, but just I didn't understand why decisions were made, and to me they didn't look like they were made in a very thoughtful. I think it was thoughtful, I'm sure, but I didn't understand the reasoning behind it, and that really bothered me. And so that, coupled with just not feeling like I had any control over my own destiny, to
Yes.
be dramatic, kind of launched me into thinking like, what if I just did my own thing? And I talked to a lot of practice owners and did a ton of just phone calls and coffee and happy hours and just sitting down with people and saying, why'd you do it? And, what do you think? And overwhelmingly just resonated with me. And so I kind of put some feelers out, and something fell into my lap, and we went from there. So it was
Yeah.
mostly just divine intervention, probably.
Yes. Everything happens for a reason, right?
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. It sounds like you have a pretty strong network then of people that you could lean on and kind of bounce the decision off of. So was there, obviously there's kind of two hurdles. Was it, hey, I'm going to go buy a practice, and then it just so happened to be East Orchard Dentistry? Or was it this opportunity came up, it's East Orchard Dentistry? And was there something that attracted you in particular to that practice?
It was I was open to anything. Really wasn't that open to the idea of practice ownership. That was kind of last priority. I think I was looking for maybe a partnership or looking for an associateship with an option to buy in later. That's kind of how a lot of dental practice transitions work.
Yep.
I don't know if that's standard for business, probably somewhat, but
Very
where, you
common
kind of buy
financial
your
advisor.
shares in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So it was kind of the who you know and paths cross type of thing. There was a guy who had started his own brokerage company where he pairs up, potential buyers with owners. And I had known him as a rep a long time ago, and just said, Matt, I don't know if do you have any available associateships or partnerships? And he was like, do not make any other phone calls. Like, just stay right there. This guy's been looking for a while. He's interviewed like 5 or 6 people. I just don't think he's found the right fit, kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, and so, we met in June of 2020. That was the first time I met the seller. We talked for a while, a couple weeks later we met again, and he was like, do you even want to own a practice? And I was like, I don't know, probably. And so, I mean, it was that this opportunity specifically just couldn't have been more perfect. And so it kind of launched me maybe before I was even ready. And then I hit the ground running. So
yeah. That's great. So
which is lucky.
Yes. That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. And now the business is doing well. So glad it's worked out. What are we, 2.5 years in?
Yeah, 2.5. I think I closed just over September of 2020 we closed. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, great. So as you were going through that process, there's obviously people that helped you with buying it, whether that be, a bank or an attorney or an accountant. So how did you go about kind of selecting who to help you through that process? As you were approached with those different things that came up.
The, there's so much when you are buying a business, I'm sure, of any kind. They're just, I mean, so many decisions. There's so much decision fatigue that I don't think it's possible for any single person to thoroughly vet and research all of the choices. So
Right.
my strategy was, find a couple of people who I, resonate with as far as their values, personality, are they relaxed the way I'm relaxed? Do they care about the same things I care about? Do they focus on the same things I focus on? And who did they go with? And are they happy? And so that was kind of the, hey, do you know a financial advisor? Oh, we've known John for years. You blah, 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 whatever. And,
right.
And so I started that way. And then I just, if, maybe get 2 or 3 options based on a couple of different people, do some emails, some quick phone calls. Okay, sounds like my guy. And went with that. Now that I'm in, there's a couple of things that after I'm cycling 2 or 3 years and I'm starting to go, you know what, I don't know if that's quite right. And you can always I just changed my accountant, and there wasn't anything wrong with my previous accountant. We just, communication style wasn't the same. So I switched. But I mean, it's, I think that helped a lot, just to make those kind of snap decisions based on gut and advice from other people, instead of trying to sit down and comb through all of the choices, because there's just so many decisions at the beginning, and you would go insane. You never sleep because you just be doing that. So I mean, that was my theory and strategy, and it worked out. Nobody steered me wrong, thankfully, but
yes.
So yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah, that is good. It's good to find people that have been through that process, and the word of mouth can at least get you halfway there, right? And then if you connect with that person and, like you said, shared values, it's obviously important as well. So, so as you were going through the purchase process, was there any particular bumps in the roads, like anything that stuck out on you, or any of those moments where you're thinking, wow, this might not even go through? Like I'm ready to just walk away. Any sort of hiccups from that perspective?
No, if there was ever it's not going to work. I mean, I was pretty trusting of the whole, we had that broker, which helped. So I wasn't, he had done a third party valuation of the practice. So, I mean, from a purchase agreement standpoint, price and value were there wasn't a lot of, negotiating. The practice valuated for what it was. The loan was approved on that valuation, so that was really easy. I don't know if that happens everywhere, because I feel like that could be a big
there's definitely can be some sticking points back and forth, but from what I've seen, having a business broker in place, or for larger companies like an investment banker, takes a lot of that back and forth out of the way.
And I mean, I don't know what that ended up. Honestly, I think the owner had to pay him. Yeah, he had to pay him out of his share at the end of it, so it didn't hurt me.
Right.
So that was kind of the nice. Yeah, it was great. And honestly, one of those, and I don't know, I hope there are no attorneys out there listening to this, but man, I wish I could bill hourly. That would be so great. Because that is tough. I just think the selling doctor and I had a great relationship by that point. We were both, very trusting of everything. We didn't have a whole lot of back and forth, but our attorneys kept having these, and you're reading this, I got 78-page purchase agreement. And I'm like, I don't even know what half of this is. And my attorney's saying there are 16 modifications, and their attorney's sending back a strikes. And we're both going, we're just paying like buku dollars for these two to try to hash this out, but you also don't want to get screwed. So I don't know that there was anything that could have been done differently on that end, but that was kind of the most of, what do you go through an attorney? How do you keep those fees down? Because those are killer. I mean, every time that you ask a question or So I think that was one of the things that I didn't anticipate at all, getting that bill, and also just all of the legal. I mean, I knew there would be legal paperwork, but it seemed like everything was just rolling. And then all of a sudden it's like the two attorneys got involved, and it was like,
Yes.
so
Right.
I think that's probably standard, but for me, that was one of the most surprising and more challenging things, was kind of navigating how to not drive up our attorney fees by $1 million, but also I think I'm not getting screwed. I hope I'm not getting screwed.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I share a similar sentiment with, with the business that my friends and a couple of partners that we bought this
yeah.
year. You're exactly right. You don't know what you don't know. So much of that, you trust the attorney, and you're right. There's questions every single day that you have, and they're the person to ask, right? I mean, there's no one else that can really, I mean, yeah, somebody might be able to answer it for you, but they don't know the exact scenario of what's going on. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I had a similar experience as well. It's those hours tend to add up quickly, but at the same time, it's like you're not going to sit there and sift through 80 pages.
Right. You're kind of
Whatever it
at the
might be.
mercy of the billable hours of the attorney and how much they're willing to, answer or do, and not necessarily call it a billable, or, how much those two attorneys want whatever their thing is that they want in writing to go through, which I don't even know if. So yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow when that bill came.
Yes. Yeah. The only bright side is you can pay it from the business.
That's true.
Yeah. As opposed to out of your own pocket, which, some of those fees which are, mainly the bank fees, can have, down payment, things like that, closing costs, kind of out of your own pocket. So, well, good. So, now you've been in there, and obviously the deal closed. So what challenges are you currently facing? Either with the business itself, or kind of just like the general landscape of private practice ownership, or, employees. What do you typically see, not only in that first year, but then, now that you're kind of past that first year and have a good foundation under you?
I think the first year, probably of any business ownership, is there's just so much. I mean, and having a great accountant or, probably business manager of some kind is helpful. But there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of, especially, I offer benefits, and we do a 401k, and we do all of these things. So that's all, that's all me. And I've never had to do any of that administrative stuff before. It's not the nature of my day-to-day job. My 9 to 5 is healthcare and dentistry and working with patients. So the other 30 hours a week that I work is, doing that stuff. And it's not always, it's not that much, but in the beginning, it sure felt like that.
Right.
And so I think being able to, task some of that out would be really great, but then you got to pay somebody to do that. So,
right.
I mean, you're in a lot of debt when you first start. And so some of that I'm just taking on, and you want to learn that stuff so that if you do task it out, you can check in periodically and know it's being done correctly. So,
Right.
I mean, that's hard. It's just time management, knowing when to say, okay, this is just over my head and I need to ask for help, and just take it on the chin when I have to pay for it, or
Right.
knowing when to, figuring out how to do it from home some, and figuring out how to spend my days off efficiently. I'm becoming very efficient at my time off and time away from patients, I should say. It's not really time off, but I think that is the biggest challenge. And over 2 years in, I'm getting better at it, but there are still days that I'm like, oh my God, I had 90 things on my to-do list and I got 4 done. How did that happen? So that's, I think time management is, for probably any business owner, is going to be that, because you have the job that you're doing And then you have this entire other job, which is running a business.
Right. Right.
And that, I have 5 employees. It's really, really not that big of a business, but I can't imagine having more. And maybe I just flirt with this line of being like a super small business versus a small business, because maybe if I had a few more employees, I would generate more revenue and then I could outsource more. And, it all kind of builds, but
It does.
I think that's probably just figuring out what's worth delegating and what I can afford to delegate, and then things I want to take on my own, I think is my biggest like personal challenge.
Right.
And people, all people, patient people and staff people, just dealing with the public is
Yes.
ever challenging,
Right.
but rewarding too.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you first took over, obviously I'm sure there's changes that needed to be made. So how did you go about, addressing those changes? Were they well received? Was it a bit of a struggle? New ownership, I'm sure you had a different way of doing things than the previous owner. So did you find any of that difficult, or anything that you finally said, okay, fine, we'll just keep doing it that way, that you kind of threw your hands up and gave up on?
I think, and probably beneficial that my goal was never to own a business, and I was still in the mindset of barely wrapping my head around that. So I didn't come in guns blazing, like we need to change all this, because I never had this idea in the first place. So I was like, everybody's been through enough changes, because I'm me and I'm not a 60-year-old white man that they've known for 30 years. I'm a whole new person. So I'm a big enough change. I didn't change the sign on the front of the building for 3 months.
Right.
And that might not be everybody's thing, because if you've been like just dreaming of owning something or making something your own, that you're going to want to come in and at least change. I didn't even know if we should change how we answer the phones. Like I was like, just say Glockner Family Dentistry. That's fine. So it was gradual, and naturally it kind of changed. There have been some things that now I feel like everybody is pretty well adjusted, but dentistry works in 6-month windows as far as patients go. So, that for 6 months, it was enough just to introduce myself every day, 13 times a day, and have people were crying twice a day just that it was me and not him. So, that was emotionally challenging, but also that was enough for everybody to deal with. So it took about 6 months for me to start really going, hey, why don't we try it this way? Which most of it was well received, because I didn't really try to change anything just because that was how I wanted it. I mostly changed things because I was like, there's an easier way to do this, which is an opinion, obviously. But as far as, I could tell, I was like, this is probably being done harder because he just had done it like that for so long. So most of the time staff were like, oh my God, why were we doing this the other way for so long? So I don't know. And in doing that, I've retained almost all the staff. I've brought in some full-time hires, but anybody that has wanted to stay, or anybody that I wanted to stay, has stayed. The one staff member that I've lost so far it was a family issue with her. She had a death in the family and she just had to hang it up for a little while, and she wants to come back, but I just don't have room for her. So, I think that has helped me transition, and I think it's helped patients transition, but at least that's worked for me, was just kind of rolling the way it used to and trying not to get ahead of yourself or put too much value in how you think something's done. I came into a really successful business, so I'm not sure why I thought I could do it better than what he was doing. So I just kind of did it the old way for a while, and it worked for me. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, that can be that can obviously be difficult if you're making wholesale changes. But like you said, it seems like maybe you added a little bit of some technology, or just kind of 2022, upgrades you can do the systems and processes and things like that. But overall, it sounds like that was a relatively easy switch. And That's interesting to hear you say that about, a lot of service-based businesses can be the same way, whether you're an accountant, attorney, a dentist, a hairstylist, having that new person is obviously an adjustment for everyone, but hopefully it's been a smooth transition, and clients, I'm sure they're happy now. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think 2.5 years in now, I just did a renovation on the building and never would have done that when I walked in. I mean, I guess I could have, but you just start
Right.
that's a lot of change at once. And I think change makes people uncomfortable. We know that. So I think introducing changes little tiny bits at a time, it makes it more palatable for everybody.
Yeah. Well, good. So you mentioned it earlier on about, private practices being less and less common now. And I would assume a lot of that is due to like reimbursements and insurance companies. So what sort of challenges are you facing from that aspect of, dealing with insurance companies and payments and things like that?
Yeah, a lot of that comes with buying power. So you see it for insurance companies, you see it with supply costs. My health insurance that I provide for my staff. I mean, all kinds of things. The more people you have in a group to purchase something, the better deal you're going to get because of volume. Yep. So dental insurance companies are a whole animal. I honestly feel like everybody's saying that the insurance market is a whole animal, whether it's healthcare, medical, or life. And, some of those I don't know as much about, but I think when you look at your medical insurance and your dental insurance, things are getting weird. I mean, things are changing a lot. You're seeing really big players come up quickly, and seeing a lot of money being moved around. It's pretty wild how much they control. And I don't think it was like this 10 years ago. I don't know because I wasn't doing all of this, but I just don't remember hearing nearly as much about it on either side. I mean, I think they're controlling what medical doctors are doing. They're controlling surgeries that people can have. They're controlling medications. We hear about big pharma and all that. I mean, there's definitely some political conversations to be had, but as far as a small business, I have no weight to throw around. So I basically have to take what they give me. By being in network with a dental insurance company. So like most people, let's say 90% of people, right? If you have dental insurance, it's probably through your employer. Yep. You work for Kroger. Kroger has Delta Dental. Kroger pays 90% of your Delta Dental premium. You pay some of it. And then Delta Dental has a network. So if you want to be in the network, you have to opt in. And by doing that, you have to take a reduction of fees. So if my fee for a crown is $1,000, but I'm in the network with Delta Dental, I get $600 instead. A big corporation might say, well, we're not going to take Delta Dental unless you give us $800 for a crown. And Delta Dental will say, well, okay, that's worth it. Here you go. I can say I want $800, and they're like, yeah, how about you're not in the network? That's fine. So they don't care about me. Right. And so that makes it really hard because you want to help your patients. Your patients are paying their premiums. I don't want to lose patients. They're going to go where they have coverage. Right. But I also, my lab cost on a crown is close to $200. My chair time costs average $75 an hour to run the chair with wear and tear and staff. And, I'm breaking even on that. And how much of that can I do as a small business with all my overhead? So dental insurance companies are a challenge for all dentists, but especially private practice owners. Right. And I feel like something's got to change with all health and dental companies, insurance companies right now, but I don't know what it's going to be because they have a lot of power. Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate to hear. And for everybody out there, support your private practices, right? Go to your private practices. Yes. Yeah. Well, good. So, what are your future plans for the business? So is it
kind of maintain? Is that change ever evolving every day? What do you kind of have in mind there?
Oh man. I mean, I think it's ever evolving. One of the things when I sat down with a lot of owners and just said, why do you own? What do you get from this? I mean, I've never earned more money being a practice owner than I did as an employee ever. And I'm working twice as hard. I mean, I'm building equity and I know there's value in that, but from a just take home money standpoint, that's not what I'm going for here. Going for the flexibility. So growth to me is a scary word because I don't necessarily want to work anymore. I don't want to work more than I already am. So by, more money, more problems, and more employees and more staff is more work. And so I don't know. I don't know what, you have to grow to keep up with inflation and my cost of employees. And I want my employees to grow in their careers. And I want to be able to, offer them more benefits and bigger pay raises and those types of things. But I also don't want to, I don't know. That's why I'm probably not a very good business person because I don't really have a plan. I'm hoping it happens organically, just like everything else seems to happen for me. But I'd love to bring somebody on eventually because I do feel like I don't have a business mindset. And so a lot of making these hard business decisions takes a lot out of me. And I'd love to have somebody to share that responsibility with. So I'd love to see, we're an all female company. I'd love to see another female doc in there to help bounce some of this off and also understand, work-life balance and family and that stuff. But in order to do that right now, I'd probably have to take a pay cut, which I don't know if I can do that. So I think the goal is growth. Everybody's goal is growth. I don't think we're not trying to get smaller. It's pretty small. But I don't have some, 5-year trajectory planned out and, this is how we're going to do it. Just kind of keep being good to people and hope that the payback comes my way. So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, good. Because you're right. I mean, adding people, there's controlled growth. And then how does that affect your bottom line? Right. I mean, you can add more and more patients, but like you said, if it's patients that you're breaking even on or not profitable, then, really you're just adding more hours for not more income, unfortunately. So there's definitely some give and take there. As far as what we should be doing.
We've looked at growth, and that's funny because my husband is better at this than I am, and he's not a business owner, but he's talked about, growth. And if you want growth, but you don't want to work more, then your price per procedure essentially has to increase. So target marketing toward better insurance companies, or target marketing toward private pay patients and that stuff. And I don't know if I have it in me. I don't do any marketing, but things like that are there. And like what you're saying, there's ways to do it. And but I don't know if I have the bandwidth to process through all of it, but I'll get there probably.
Yes, of course. Right. So Lindsey, as someone that's been through this process and now you're running your practice, if there was anyone that was in your shoes, so if dating back to 2018, 2019, or somebody that's maybe they have the dream or the goal to eventually buy a practice, or maybe they're the succession plan, they're kind of coming up and they'll eventually be taking over that. Is there any last words or any advice that you would share with those people in that situation?
I thought about this as a closeout question. There's probably not a perfect situation. I don't think seeking out, I think you are going to make a business what you want to make it. But it's never going to be what you thought it was going to be. So there's no point in locking yourself into some idea and just searching for this perfect situation, and or holding yourself to some weirdly high standard that you need it to get to. I think you just kind of have to give yourself a lot of grace and, you know, make it the best that you can make it every day, but and have your goals and have people that hold you to your goals, and, you know, have long-term plans and those types of things. We don't want to be stupid or irresponsible, but there's just a lot of pressure that comes with it, and it's mostly self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of learned to just, if it can wait till tomorrow, let it wait. And, you know, don't have this idea in your head and always just thinking, you know, well, when I get to this, it's going to be great. Or when we do this, it's going to be great. Just take the great out of every day and keep going with it, and hope there's another great day tomorrow.
That's right. Head down, nose to the grindstone, one day at a time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yep. That's good. And you're right. You're building that equity, which is great. So, all right. So how can people find you? There's a Facebook page, website. Where do we?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page. It's spotty because that's also my job. But we do have a website at eastorcharddentistry.com. Or people can reach out to you if they want to just talk to me. I'm happy to share my cell phone. My cell phone's on our voicemail at the office, so it's public knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. I'm happy to help with anything I can help with, business or teeth.
Yes. All right. Well, perfect. Well, Lindsey, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. This was great. So have a good one.
I appreciate it. You too.
Right.